Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Guide Adventures. My name is Guy, and today, as you can see, I'm not in a ruin to go rumbling. And the very short answer for that is all of the places that I wanted to go to are currently chock-a-block full of screaming, terrorizing children. And, well, quite frankly, I couldn't handle that notion. And also, the venues that I wrote to said, thank you, but no thank you. So that is why I'm here on a virtual set. We're going to be doing exactly the same thing that we've done in the past. The only difference is that I haven't left my studio, but we're going to be seeing some cool stuff. Now, Trail of the Behemoth was a Kickstarter that I promoted a couple of months ago now, and they successfully funded. Go them. Trail of the Behemoth is a custom-written rule set on hunting down these titanic monsters, kind of like Monster Hunter, the video game. And it's really cool and it's really exciting, and I've actually been commissioned to write one of their adventures for them, which is going to be a lot of fun. But it got me thinking about where can we draw inspiration from? Where can we have this idea, this real world source of inspiration? Well, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were the biggest things that wandered around this planet for a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons why they got so big, and then they got so small, and then they turned into Kentucky Fried Chicken. But, you know, well, sorry, you're not allowed to call it that anymore. It's not actually Kentucky Fried Chicken, now it's just KFC. So, it's a whole different ballgame. Anyway, they turned into KFC. Now, why dinosaurs? Well, dinosaurs are colossal, they're huge, and they have been inspiring us as a species for millennia. Ever since the very first individual came across a fossil embedded in the rock somewhere, they've looked at that fossil and they have gone, what is this? I don't see this wandering around now, but it is here, and it looks like the bones of something else, only 20 times bigger. This must be a dragon. This must be some kind of ancient colossus. This must be something of terrible proportions. For example, the Cyclops from Greece. Many speculate that it was actually just an elephant skull. When you see an elephant skull, you'll see why it looks like a cyclops. Well, you know what? Boom, there, elephant skull. Cyclopses. So we've been inspired by dinosaurs from the very beginning, and I have to say that I, as a kid and as an adult, have loved dinosaurs. They are this amazing creature. I've also been very privileged to wander around Africa and to get very close with our last biggest animals, the elephant, for example. This giant beast, I mean, it doesn't even fit in the frame. These colossal elephants, they are majestic and terrifying at the same time. And this little elephant, or the elephant, I should say, doesn't even come close to some of the dinosaurs that were wandering around. So we're going to be looking at some dinosaurs, and throughout the course of this 4-part series, we're going to be writing some new rules, because we need to. We're going to be creating an amazing adventure and having a lot of fun looking at something that I think a lot of us have always loved from the very beginning. Anyway, without any further ado, remember to hit that like button if you like these videos, and let's get on with it. Cool. Okay, so Ankylosaurus, however you want to pronounce it. The Ankylosaur was a heavily armored tank of its era. Ankylosaur means fused lizard. The bony plates on its back are fused. It's really, really well protected, kind of reminiscent of an armadillo. If an armadillo was 6 to 8 meters long and weighed about 6 to 8 tons. So, a pretty big armadillo. Oh yes, and then the giant spiked club at the base of its tail. Just horrendous stuff. Designed possibly for defending against predators, possibly for some kind of courting, mating ritual. When you look at giraffe, they've got horns on the tops of their heads, not for beating off lions, for displaying prowess and defeating their allies, and possibly heat exchange as well. I mean, all of these wonderful things. And we have giraffe wandering around, whereas these we don't have wandering around. So we assume that that's what they're for. Now, this creature, when you look at its scale, this could easily become much, 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 much bigger and have a community living on it. Or it could be used as a battering ram. Charge in. Now, you may have come across Dinotopia, which was a series of children's books which featured dinosaurs, or Dino Riders, the 80s classic comic. Ankylosaur featured in them and was used primarily as this sort of means of attack, of defensive attack, I should say. Could be useful. I do like the idea of its flat surface allowing us to build a village on top of it. I think that might work. The problem is, if it gets too big, the underside becomes problematic. Things that are underneath it can then attack the soft underbelly. The protection is all about coming from the top. That's why this guy is not particularly high. He doesn't need to be. As a matter of fact, the lower, the better. So that's Ankylosaur. Well, thank you very much. You can go. All right. From Ankylosaur, we need to now go and have a look at something that would probably, or probably not, or maybe, or depending on which paleontologist you speak to, may have attacked and feasted upon these beasts, or may have scavenged on these beasts, or may have just have avoided them altogether. It's dinosaurs, man. Dinosaurs are wonderfully, wonderfully exotic. We are going to go and look at a true predator. Gigantosaurus. Gigantosaurus. Again, you choose. Doesn't matter. Whatever makes you happy. Gigantosaurus was gigantic, as you can see. Huge. Massive. Rivaling, by some arguments, the T-Rex in terms of scale. Again, partial skeletons have been found, and let me give you a clue as to where they found Great Southern Lizard. They've been found mainly in South America, and bits have been found in South America, so we assume that they are this big. I say we, it's not like I'm part of a group. The scientists assume they're this big. They could be bigger, they could be slightly smaller, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, they are an apex predator. Nothing really feasts on them except perhaps each other. There is some evidence of cannibalism within the species. And we know lions will kill each other. They won't eat each other, but they will kill each other. And that sort of thing. So that could possibly happen. So here we have something that is 15 meters long from nose to tail. Not that that indicates very much. Also 8 tons. That's a pretty heavy lapdog. Debate on whether they can run fast or slow. Some say, yes, definitely. Look at those long legs. They are designed for speed. They are ostrich-like. And then others will go, yes, but an ostrich doesn't have 3 meters of tail, which weighs nearly a ton sticking out the back of it. And then others will say, yes, but that's for stability whilst moving. That keeps the whole thing balanced, sort of on the cantilever type of system. And then others will say, yes, but look at the weight of those bones. Those are load-bearing bones. They're not the bones of a runner. Those are the bones of a plodder. So I imagine something like mine, for example. Anyway, an interesting little side fact, which I haven't ever yet come across on the internet. So this is a unique piece of information. 76, give or take, 7th graders can fit inside one of these creatures. And I know that for a fact because when I was a young lad, when dinosaurs had just died out and it was still, vogue to wear dinosaur skin shoes, I was at a museum and it was a dinosaur day at the museum, and they invited us all to come and, participate and that sort of thing. And we're all 7th graders, and they had made a paper cutout of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, very similar in size to Gigantosaurus here. And they had laid it out. It was all on newspaper on the big floor of the museum, and we all had to lie in it to see how many of us could fit in. And 76 was the grand total. So there you have it. Now, what that does say to me, though, is that you have this creature. It can run fast, let's say, because that makes it more interesting. It's pretty narrow profile from directly on the front. So that makes it difficult to hit. Modern day culture says this is a carnivorous creature, so it's an attacking creature. The bad people would ride these creatures, for sure. Let's say that. They ride them into battle. The beast is snapping away, trying to eat at whatever it can. We know from history where giant beasts of burden have been used in combat. I'm looking at elephants in India and Hannibal, for example. Their intimidation factor was huge, absolutely spectacular. And medieval knights used to ride war horses into combat and decorate those war horses in as much armor as they could. But again, we know all of this magnificent scale and size is meaningless when you have a pike set for a charge. So perhaps these act more like cavalry, and instead of being the main line going in, they come around the sides. They flankers. They're coming around and they're attacking from the sides. Now, if this creature was truly colossal, if we upscaled it even more, no, a little bit more, okay. If we upscaled it even more than it currently is, it's not really going to be able to reach anything on the ground. It's got to bend so far down, it's going to be eating the tops of trees and mountains or other creatures of that size. It's not going to be worrying about little creatures. So if the players can do what the hell they like, they're just never going to be seen by it. So I think it needs to come down in size. This does help us, though, because it starts to get us to think about these gigantic beasts. What are they likely to do? What are they likely to feast upon? What are they likely to want to feast upon? Let's let him go off and do his thing. It's 70 million years ago, give or take a million years, and we have one of the most misrepresented dinosaurs ever. And it's misrepresented because of Hollywood, which is absolutely fine, because even the scientific community misrepresent their dinosaurs. Not as intentionally as Hollywood, but they still get it wrong. Hollywood, however, decided that this cute little fluffy it's not cute and it's not fluffy. And yes, it is perhaps related to a chicken, but at 2 meters long, the Velociraptor, or swift thief, the Velociraptor is still a very scary creature and is still capable of disemboweling or garroting me with its claws, and that bite, I don't care who you are, that is still a ferocious bite. This thing is still bigger than a Saint Bernard. So you want to play fetch with this little guy? There's lots of theories about how these creatures operated. The claws on their feet were they used for slashing open the belly? A lot of arguments say no. The belly of most dinosaurs was full of muscle and very well protected with lots of thick skin. More likely they were flailing, flashing, slashing, clawing, biting the neck of creatures. Leaping, jumping, being very, very active, running around, and hunting in packs is another theory. There's lots of sort of talk about the skull, the shape of the skull indicating nasal calls and things like that. We see flocking happening in birds. We don't see it happening in predatory birds. It's not like a group of eagles get together. Groups of crows get together, which is interesting, depending on how far you want to push it. So velociraptors, similar to their theropod cousins, the T-Rexes and Gigantosaurus and all those kinds of things, are the avian dinosaurs. These are the ones that they say now moved from being dinosaurs into being birds, having been able to regulate their body temperatures and the like. And there is evidence, especially in these raptors, that there are quill marks, quill puckers on the bones, which indicate where feathers would be. Not flight feathers, but where feathers would be. At least that's the current theory. And we'll see where that one goes. So Velociraptor is not a giant predator. And if you upscale Velociraptor, basically they just become a T-Rex with feathers. So let's keep them small. But it did give me some ideas. What if these were launched from a bigger creature? Remember, we were saying that Gigantosaurus is almost too big to worry about little pedestrian folk. What if these little velociraptors almost hung on to something like Gigantosaur, which is not going to get attacked by anybody with any common sense, and then they all just dropped off and went hunting in little packs, making their little calls and things, they could possibly bring down bigger prey or wound bigger prey sufficiently so that we could then send in the big dinosaur who then eats or kills the last of the prey. Could you do that? Do you think that would be something that you would do? It's possible. It's possible. But again, we're just looking for inspiration. So I think one more dinosaur, and that should give you as much inspiration as you need and as I need in order for us to move forward. And I think we might as well go for the biggest of the big. Wow. Remember when I said big? Remember when I said big? 26 meters long as a school pool. 35 tons. 35 tons. And just colossal. Absolutely colossal. I mean, you do not get bigger than this. Well, possibly you do, because they're always finding bigger dinosaurs. This is Alamosaurus, or Alamosaurus. Guess where it was found? Alamosaurus is one of the giant sauropods, a group of four-legged dinosaurs. One of the first reasons why we realized the dinosaurs weren't reptiles is because look at those long, straight legs, columnar legs, rather than reptilian legs, which stick out the side. So reptiles walk like this, dinosaurs walk like this. Very big difference in terms of your range of mobility, in terms of speed, in terms of stability as well, and in terms of how one carries oneself. Now, sauropods, when they were first found, were so colossal that a lot of folks didn't have a reference. They went, well, like kind of like elephants, except that their brains, their literal brains, were not anywhere near that of a modern-day elephant. And when they make series about dinosaurs, walking with dinosaurs, for example, they were trying to work out how these dinosaurs would work. And so they looked at how elephants work. And elephants have the most remarkable walking technology available to a modern-day species. Let's bring in an elephant. Be on. All right, elephant. Hello, elephant. The feet of an elephant are so covered in fatty sinews that when they walk, they're silent. They don't make noise. Their feet just pad very quietly through the ground. You can literally have an elephant walk right past you and you wouldn't know. None of this giant thumping, lumbering, crashing sound. Why? Why would they have this silent walking? The only thing that's attacking elephants are prides of lions, and even then, they wouldn't attack the adults. They would only attack the babies. So why do they have this adaptation? And did Alamosaurus and Brachiosaur and Diplodocus or Diplodocus, did they have these fatty tissues to make them walk silently? Can you imagine the stealth check of an Alamosaurus? Thanks, elephant, you can go. An Alamosaurus with a stealth check of +10. You can't hear it coming. You could see it if you could see it for the trees. Now, they didn't have any references, and they thought elephants would be the closest thing. But elephants' brains, as I said, were very, very big, and they have a very graceful walk, a very silent walk, and a very graceful walk. And they said, well, dinosaur brains are much, much, much smaller, so they can't possibly have that same fluidic range of motion because their brains are smaller. I'm no neural expert, but a dog, a little chihuahua, walks just as well as a Saint Bernard. Their brains are different sizes to their body. I know the ratio is what they talk about. Oh, it's much, much smaller in comparison to its body size. Sure. Is that an indicator? I don't know. It's one of the things that they use to try and explain these things. And that's why I'm saying these really spark our imaginations because they really get us thinking. So Alamosaurus, this titanic creature, whether it walked clumsily, silently, rapidly, whether it could do a dance, whether it could lift more than 1 foot off the ground. We often see them in poses where they're rearing up to gain extra height because some trees are just stubborn that way. All of this we don't know. Because they don't walk anymore. So it is something for us to ponder and to think about. Now, Alamosaurus is large enough that we could have entire communities living on the sides of these creatures. There could be an entire city strapped onto these beasts. Which raises then the question, why? Why would we want to do this? Why would we want to have an entire city living on a mobile creature? Well, perhaps we wouldn't. Perhaps we would want this beast to be a beast and to just rampage through and consume everything. So we've got all of this inspiration. We know these colossal beasts exist. Translating that into something that's going to attack PCs means that either the PCs have to be on it, so it has to be really, 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 really big, in which case it wouldn't care about the PCs, or it's got to be just big enough that they are aware of the PCs and they can actually do something to the PCs. But then they might be too big. Take, for example, Gigantosaurus. Still big, still very, very, very big, and Dungeons & Dragons has got a whole bunch of rules on dinosaurs already, where they've given them their stat blocks and things. Where they come up with their numbers is only known to them. But when it comes to our purposes, those don't count as behemoths. They just count as dinosaurs. So we need to go bigger than that, because otherwise what are we doing? We're just adding dinosaurs. That's it from me for this week. And I know it's not the usual Rumble in the Ruins. We're not getting to see amazing and wonderful places. But this is how I thought it best to bring these dinosaurs to life, because this is our only reference point. When we're trying to come up with something as crazy as this behemoth, this gigantic creature, we need some kind of references. And you could look at Statue of Liberty, for example, if you don't want to use dinosaurs. Statue of Liberty could be a giant construct, aka Ghostbusters. In which case, again, it's so big, the little people don't count. And I think that that is something that is key. And I'm going to keep saying it, and I'm going to keep referencing it over these videos, is we've got to understand how it is that we can make these things big, but still relevant to the PCs. There's a scale there. I think we're going to have to find it first before we can move on. What are your thoughts on dinosaurs on this particular video? Let me know in the comments down below, and we'll take it from there. But next week, I have to design a whole new rule set because we just don't have it. It seems to be that I'm designing a lot of rule sets for these videos. I'm not complaining. I absolutely love doing it. And it stimulates the little gray cells, to quote Hercule Poirot from Agatha Christie, in ways that I cannot explain. Anyway, until next week, I wish you and yours the very happiest of adventure creation.